What's going on, guys? SeeJay here. Wanted to make another video today. It's Christmas Day, so Merry Christmas for all you guys that are celebrating that around the world. I thought today would be a fun video, and I'd like to make this sort of like a series. I don't know if it'd be monthly or every other month. I guess it really depends on the characters that are released and how quickly things are sort of happening in regards to new metas kind of building out as people are able to kind of build up some of these other squads. Obviously, the game's still relatively young, so a lot of the teams that are being used in the raids are teams that I think a lot of people have kind of just early invested into and built those teams out. And so a lot of people are running kind of like the same core, right? Um, but as you can see, I'm currently in the Discord channel with my guild, Pants of Hulk, and this is the data coming from last week's raid run for Pants of Hulk, Flock of Smeagol's. They are, I believe, the 8th ranked guild in the game for total collection power. So they're not number one, but they are up there in power. So a lot of these guys are definitely spenders and trying to really min max the teams. So this data is pretty good to give you like a general idea of how the teams are performing as of December 2023 for chapter 1. I thought about doing this for all 4 chapters, but I think it might be too long of videos, and I'd like to keep videos closer to like, under 10 minutes. So I think I might aim to try and do all 4 chapters maybe once a month as kind of like a video on my channel to help sort of see how things are kind of escalating and how the meta is shifting, because with Thorn that's in recently came out, Balin, who's now starting to see some of his team built out, I think some things are kind of twisting in terms of where chapter 1 teams, or just in general the raid teams, existed even just a few weeks ago. But I figured I'd go through kind of like our internal Discord information and show our top 10 teams coming out of the Flock of Smeagol's run from last week in chapter 1. So first and foremost, Rivendell, powerful team. They're generally like probably top 3 in all 4 chapters. You always have your core 4. So in this case, your Eladin, your Arwen, your Elrohir, and your Elrond, right? Your 5th guy technically is Lomian, but Narameri seems to be used more consistently here to kind of hit that that difficulty for 1.5 million. So definitely a great score to kind of to go after. It's going to take a while for your average player to probably get 1.5 million, but 900k is more than doable for like a pretty free to play friendly Rivendell team. Number 2, surprisingly, is actually the Rohan Trio. They're putting up 900k scores on almost all the attempts coming from our guild. It's obviously your core 3 plus sort of just the fillers. So in this case, the example given was using Halbarad and Eothane, but usually you could use your 3 and then kind of just flex in 2 random guys. So for me, usually when I'm running Rohan, I generally would flex in like Gaz and like Lomian, because if I'm going to use Narameri for my Rivendell team, I'd probably have my Lomian who's sort of built out, and most people probably haven't built out if they built out the Rivendell. So it works out to maybe just kind of squeeze that guy in for like your number 4 spot, and then your 5th spot again, just like whatever's probably your strongest, maybe healer, but in general just like your next strongest character on your roster. And then third up is Thorin. So again, not a lot of people probably have Thorin unless you're a spender, but very strong for just kind of having like an initial release of characters. They're easily going to be like a 1.5 million team. So we knew Thorin was going to be a strong player, and the numbers don't lie. They're already a top team. Number 4, we have Road to Rivendell, actually, which is awesome because that's like your pseudo free to play friendly team that everybody has access to early on, and really can kind of get your star ratings on those characters extremely quickly. So they do fiddle out as you kind of go through the raid into the further chapters. They're kind of capped, but I suppose you sort of expect something like that. when you're kind of getting your most free to play friendly team, they want you to spend money in this game, right? So like your Thorns of the world, your Elrons of the world, your Gandalfs, whatever, right? Like your big power hitters, they're going to be the ones that they really want you to invest into. And the way to invest into those guys is generally spending money, right? So, but for Rivendell to be a top 5 team, Road to Rivendell, I'm sorry, that's great. That's great news. So for any of you kind of like newer players or Chapter 1, just trying to like really find that one team that can push you to that 900k score, that's probably the fastest team to get to 900k. Road to Rivendell is performing quite well. Balin's Expedition. This is one that when I finished, like I kind of discussed yesterday with my roster, when Haradrim and Rivendell are built out, I really think I'm going to go after Balin. Lord Balin, however you want to say it. He's Balin, right? I think his squad is great. Like Rumiel and Orphan is awesome. And it's still not even like a complete team. So just imagine like if we can get more to that group instead of flexing in this case like Legolas and Gimli, I think the team will be like another like 1.5k million team easily. And the fact that Rumiel and Orphan will be available to farm in a couple of weeks, and Lord Balin just dropped not too long ago, it's just like another really good squad to farm. Haradrim comes in 6th, which is kind of sad because I'm like a Haradrim fan here and kind of like the go-to squad that I want to build out. But they generally do a lot better in a lot of the other chapters, especially Chapter 2. So still 100% worth building out, and it's nice to see that they're like, still viable, of course, of like a 900k team easily to just run like the full squad. But they obviously struggle a little bit more than like your Chapter 2 teams, or that would fit a little bit better for sort of their kit, like how they play with the serpent sting and such. Gondor is another team that I don't think a lot of people have built out yet because they're not exactly free to play, right? Like Boromir and Faramir just kind of became available, Denethor as well. They're one that like I was on the fence between myself or Balin's Expedition and Gondor, but at least Balin's Expedition, you can kind of like work them in with the dwarves, whereas Gondor is a little bit tougher. It's more like the Ranger squad, so I'm far away from like a Gondor team. And they do have some really good use in some of the later chapters of the raid. But for me right now, Gondor is just not a team that like I'm currently building out. But I think when they're fully built, they're more than capable of like another 1.5 million score team. So something to consider. Goblins, number 8 on this list. They're decent. Obviously, with the legendary unlock, I think more people might be building out some more Goblin teams. So we might see some more stuff maybe next month on how they're performing in the raid overall. I don't think a lot of people built the Goblins out. But now that you're kind of forced into doing it, it's interesting to see like how they're performing because more people are kind of putting more resources into that team. So they are, again, a 900k team. 900k is a more than worthy point to hit and to be excited to score in any of the chapters. But I'd be interested to see how they continue to progress. And then you got just some hybrid teams. They're just kind of like your fillers, like whatever you kind of have left over after your four squads are kind of hitting that 900k or 900k plus thresholds. So it's just sort of the lingerers. It's a lot of the time just gonna be like a mix between that Rohan, which is already at the top of the top tier, but then just like some other filler guys like your Naraz or some of your trolls like Gaz. Just whatever you have kind of flex to just try to like build a team that can kind of put something together. But it's sad to say that because then you go to number 10 and you're like, oh man, like Isengard, just like a full team, and they're not even better than just like a hodgepodge team. They're not good in Chapter 1. Just their kit doesn't work that well to really make it work. Now, Isengard is one of my strongest teams on my roster, and so I still use them for like 300k. I actually don't know if I'd done a difficulty 3 on them to see if I could go past 300k, but probably unlikely. But unfortunately, Isengard are just not that good in the raids, like in really any of the chapters, but they're especially not great in chapter 1. So unfortunately for like a lot of free-to-play players on the shadow side, you probably have an Isengard team just because like they sort of push them towards you while you're going through the campaign nodes, and they're just not that great in terms of performing in the raid. So you kind of have to make like a shift, because the biggest thing that I've ran into with this game and progression is a lot of the best teams are light side, and then you run into the resource deficit with the luminous crystals compared to the shadow crystals. So Haradrim's helping because they're offsetting a little bit of like Rivendell for the luminous, Haradrim for the shadow, but Isengard is one that I built out early on because they were worth doing so, just because like I had all the characters and I could farm them, so like why not? It just sucks that they're just not that great. And then the last couple of here, Mordor. I mean, they're like Isengard. They're just better options. Not much to say about them. I don't think a lot of people are running Mordor. And then lastly is the Dol-Guldur. So maybe down the road, they might have a little bit more opportunity. But again, with just 3 characters and then some like flex fillers, well, you know, time will tell, right? Like we'll see what else they add. Like I think the Dol-Guldur is like one of the coolest like factions, you know, like when they released those 3 and like the lifesteal and like just the way the kit works, it seemed like such a cool concept. It just sucks that they're kind of, again, they're like one of those rosters again that they just release like the 3 and then you're kind of missing like the other 2 to like just build them out fully. And they're like okay now, and then like what if they add like a Bilbo Bomber, like super strong 4th and 5th, you know, group for the Dol-Guldur, and they probably will. They'll probably do something like that, and we'll probably see some kind of legendary event down the road that's going to be like the Dunlin, right? Because like, does anybody have Dunlin built out? Probably not, because nobody plays Dunlin. But they will eventually. I'm calling it now. Dunlin's going to be the squad that everyone's going to have built out 5-star that no one's going to have, because who the hell wants the Dunlin group? That's going to be required for us to get that next legendary. But anyways, I figured this would be like a fun video to kind of go through you know, how like a top 10 guild is performing and the numbers that we're seeing, and sort of based off all of the players putting in their, you know, their scores, kind of how it ranks out. I thought that was kind of fun to look at it for me, so I can kind of plan like how I want my team to look when I'm going into the raids. And I think it's worth sharing. So I'll try to go through like all 4 chapters. We'll start with chapter 1 here, and we'll go through the other 4, and then we'll see like if there's not much of a change from, you know, this month to next month. Like it's probably not worth making an updated video of like how is the chapters in January, but maybe like every 2 months or 3 months. It just depends. But if this is the type of content you guys want to see to like help you with your raids and kind of like the teams to invest into, let me know in the comments below. And again, Merry Christmas to everybody, and thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.